I think it's time to get a little bit nerdy. We're talking numbers today, but don't run away. I think it's going to be really interesting. We're going to take a look at the last 2 full years of RVing, full-time, 2019, 2020, the cost of staying somewhere each month, the average cost monthly stays, and the average monthly maintenance fees. Welcome to Real Talk Tuesday. Welcome back to No Ordinary Path. I'm Kristin. My husband is John. He is a travel nurse, and together we live in a 37-foot travel trailer. We have 3 kids and a dog, and we have been coast to coast traveling for the last a little bit over 2.5 years. I have been gathering stuff and information for our taxes. Oh joy. But I'm getting a head start this year. I'm working on both NOP and our travel nurse tax stuff. So for tax purposes, I do keep track of all of our expenditures for like housing and stuff, and I don't have to report that in our tax return, but I do like to keep track of it to be able to prove to the IRS that we are duplicating expenses and therefore are entitled to our tax-free stipends. If you want to know more about a home base and stipends and all that jazz, you can check out our video up here. But that got me thinking, like, what am I actually spending on RV costs on a monthly basis? Because some months we don't spend very much because we boondock, and other months we spend a lot in park fees. And there are other expenses including in that as well that we're going to get to in just a minute. Talking about finances kind of makes me really excited, and I know I'm a super uber nerd, so if you are a numbers cruncher like me and you love Excel spreadsheets, comment below. You're my people. If you're looking to get into RVing or you're just starting your journey and you're not quite sure what to expect, this is just from our perspective. Of course, this is our story, our numbers. Everyone's circumstances are going to be different, especially depending on what kind of RV that you're traveling with and how you like to RV. If you never boondock, your expenses are going to be a little bit different than ours. If you always boondock and you very, very rarely stay in an RV park, your expenses are going to look different than ours. I would say that we boondock a quarter of the time, I'm going to guess, of the whole year. Maybe a quarter of the time, maybe a little bit more. There are 2 main categories that I'm going to talk about tonight. One is the actual living expense that you're going to encounter on a month-to-month basis dealing with your RV, and the other is a maintenance aspect of it. The living costs I have included not just the RV parks, which is a given, but I've added things in like our propane. If we're boondocking, we sometimes pay for water, we'll pay for fuel for the generator, and we always have a UPS box, so I'm going to include that because we don't have a physical mail box, so that's part of our living expense. I'm also including laundry that we go and do because we don't have an onboard washer dryer. We have a spin wash dryer, but that does not suffice for our family. So I'm adding those fees in there. I'm not including internet because we do not use anything extra besides our cell phones. We don't have a hotspot, a booster that we've paid for, no extra services or anything like that. So that is something to consider if you will be having a service like that. That would go into this category as well. But I'm not including our cell phones because we would have those fees whether we lived in an RV or not. The RV maintenance is I'm making it a totally separate category so that I can really see how much the actual living portion costs and how much it costs to maintain the living situation. And so in maintenance, we're going to cover vehicle maintenance and anything having to do with RV, like RV repairs and things of that nature. And again, we're looking at the past 2 years, and I'm going to do a comparison of them. And you guys know that we had quite a saga with our truck this year. So we had a huge hit in the maintenance department. But what I've decided to do is I pulled out the cluster truck saga. If you missed that video, go up here and watch it. I pulled all of that out so that I could get a better apples to apples comparison of actual maintenance fees between last year and this year. Okay, are you ready for the numbers? Dun 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 dun. Over here, we have 2019 total monthly costs. I'm going to break it down by each month. You can see right here how much each month costs. And as I said, this includes all of the things we talked about earlier for RVing. And over here, you're going to see all of the 2020 monthly costs. I put them on the screen right next to each other so you can see the difference. And realize that we stayed in Phoenix both years at the beginning of the year. So that's kind of a cool little comparison there. 2019, our average cost per month was $545.42, while the average monthly cost in 2020 was $667.28. So there is a bit of a difference. There's about $100 difference between 2019 and 2020. But I mean, that's kind of expected because inflation and just everything just continuously gets expensive over time. When people ask us how much we spend, how much we budget each month for RV stays, we usually tell them $600. And looking at these numbers here, that's a pretty good estimate for our family. We generally spend an average of $600 a month in RV stays. Of course, some months it's a lot less and some months it's a lot more, but averaging out our budget of $600 is pretty spot on. You can see there is quite a variance between the least and the most expensive month, which is why it's important to average it out and kind of have an idea overall of what it's going to cost you, and then you can save that money aside. Even if you have a month that you only have $170, you can set aside that whole $600 that you budgeted for months that are going to be more than $600. Of course, your RV living costs are more than just your stays. It's also your maintenance. So that's why I did a separate one for maintenance, because I really wanted to see kind of what we spent in that. And as a lot of people have pointed out, it seems like we have really terrible luck and we're always running into problems. And I don't really think that's the case. I think that it's just a natural process of needing maintenance and things done. And for us, it kind of all came due around the same time at the end of 2020. But I really think that a lot of those are just normal expenses that just happen that they clustered. We do try to save money where we can. John does our brakes and, well, pretty much brakes. Okay, he could do a lot more mechanic stuff if he had the time to do it. Honestly, like I said in our last video, he works full time and I'm not a mechanic, so we do take our vehicles in for repairs usually. But we do get oil changes on them regularly. We have the tires checked or rotated when needed. We get our suggested maintenance items done, and especially on a diesel, that's really important. So all those costs are going to be included in the maintenance section that I'll be talking about tonight. Let's look at the 2019 maintenance costs. We had a bad heater, which was under warranty, but it still cost us some money. We had some random accessories and filters and such that we had to buy throughout the year. We had to get a new set of tires for the van. And we did purchase an extended warranty for the RV. We've talked warranties before. We find peace in having warranties on our stuff so that we can take care of expenses when they come due. If you want to see how that RV warranty has worked out for us, which, spoiler alert, has been really good, you can check out our video up here. That makes the grand total for 2019 maintenance and repairs for our vehicles to $3,186.49, or an average monthly cost of $265 per month. Then we look at 2020. 2020 was bad, but we weathered okay. But we did have a lot of expenses. So we had to get a new hitch. We had to get new tires for Wendy. We had a leaf spring repair twice. We had to get new RV batteries. We got new brakes and rotors for various, like for the van and the truck. We got random small things to fix things up inside as they broke off or fell apart. We had to get new X-shocks. Then we had a broken propane regulator, and finally diesel maintenance on the Ram. So there was quite a few of expenses in 2020, and our total came to $4,522.81. or an average monthly cost of about $377. I'm actually surprised. I thought it was going to be a lot more, but we do have some different variables. We now have a diesel where we used to pull with a gasser. Is that what they're called? And then we had to get a hitch. That's not a normal thing to have to get. So there are a few extra variables in 2020 that I think accounted for the difference in cost. We do have 2 vehicles that we have to maintain and our travel trailer. We are looking at anywhere between $265 and $377 of a monthly maintenance cost that we probably need to set aside. So let's talk the $100 difference in both the RV stay and the maintenance costs. I have some theories. I think that the reason why we saw some more fees on the stay side, the RV stays, is because of COVID, actually. I really feel like going into 2020, into the summer, there was a lot of RV sales, and we even did a video about the huge spike in RV sales. I think that has actually pushed the prices up at the RV parks, and I think that's reflected in our numbers a little bit. And so that's probably part of why the fees went up. As far as the maintenance goes, I do have a theory about the maintenance too. I think that the longer we drive our vehicles and live in our RV, the more and more maintenance that's going to come up, just simply from wear and tear. And you'll see a lot of YouTube RV families that are upgrading their RVs ever so often. And honestly, this is probably part of why, because after a while, they start to fall apart a little bit. We bought it in cash, so we are going to utilize the crud out of it until it can't be utilized anymore. And so I don't know that we're going to be upgrading anytime soon, but it's possible. I know John would really love a toy hauler or a fifth wheel of some kind, but for now I think we're just going to stay with our travel trailer. But that does mean that we're likely going to see some more maintenance costs coming in the future. What are my takeaways? We accurately guessed our monthly budget of $600. Beware that this is the cost to live in your RV, but you'll have extra expenses too. We did a whole budget video after our first year on the road, and you can check that video out up here. That really breaks down the different categories of our budget, and a little bit has changed from that, like our food budget, but pretty much the rest of it is very similar to that, so it's still a great resource to check out. Maintenance is a huge thing to factor in and consider, because as we've seen here, our monthly average is between $265 and $345. So we're going to meet in the middle. We're going to say $300 is our budget for monthly maintenance. And that means that every month we're going to set aside $300 to make sure that we have funds when we need things maintenance, because they are going to come up. I guarantee it 100%. And it's better to be safe than sorry. And if you are trying to budget well, do not forget maintenance costs. If you add our monthly stays and our RV maintenance costs together, roughly $900, it is still well below what we paid for a mortgage or what we paid for renting when we moved to Kansas just before we hit the road. It made me realize that we're doing pretty well, that we are actually saving money living in the RV for now, even though sometimes it feels like we're literally bleeding money. We are actually paying less money to live in the RV than we would be like in a house or renting somewhere. That is not to say that we want to live in an RV for the rest of our lives. We do not. We would love to get back to a house someday. We just don't know when that someday is going to be. This was a lot of number crunching. There's only so much number crunching that you can handle, I'm sure. I hope that this was informative to you. If you have comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section below. And if you haven't liked and subscribed, definitely do that. Thank you guys for watching and nerding out with me today. Have a fabulous night, and we'll see you out there. What was that? Can you hear that? You can't hear that. There's a dog.